How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Glad to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I'm switching big time here. Sonny Bunch, who I guess he's at the Bulwark now. He was at the Free Beacon, but he's had a film column in the Washington Post. He has a theory about how environmentalists make the best villains in movies these days. If you watch the Kingsman movie, the original, Samuel L. Jackson was an environmentalist who essentially wanted to destroy the planet, save for some of the wealthy, good progressives who cared about the planet. Everybody else had to die. Then you had Thanos in the Marvel movies, wanted to wipe out half the universe to save the universe from overpopulation. Then you had the Aquaman movie where the bad guy brother of Aquaman wanted to kill humanity to save the oceans, to save the planet. Time and time again, environmentalists speak up and they're genocidal maniacs. They want to do things to wipe out the world or force the world to curb its behaviors. They wish to do harm to people in the name of it being for everyone's good. Thus, we arrive at Matthew Lau, who is a New York University philosopher. Let me just read you part of his biography. He's a Taiwanese-American philosopher specializing in bioethics and normative ethics, currently holds the Arthur Zittrain Chair of Bioethics and is the director of the Center for Bioethics and affiliated professor in the Department of Philosophy at New York University. He's held appointments at Oxford, Johns Hopkins, Georgetown, and Princeton. He's written the book, The Right to be Loved, and edited or co-edited for others. Philosophical Foundations of Human Rights, Moral Brains, the Neuroscience of Morality, Current Controversies in Bioethics, and Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, and writing an upcoming popular press book that analyzes the ethical dilemmas posed by near-term neurotechnologies. So, really into ethics. And got his Doctor of Philosophy at Oxford University in 2001. And I want to play you this audio of him. And this is him talking at a World Economic Forum about the problem of meat eating. You know, this is one of the big issues for environmentalists. Cows fart. And cow farting is one of the dangers of our times. Cows belching and farting releases methane, which causes the world to heat up. Because methane is a bad global warming gas. And so what do? Because people will not stop eating their cows. People love to eat their cows. Cows are tasty. In fact, that reminds me, I got to put in my Snake River Farms order for my weekend. I decided for the front porch. It's been a couple weeks since we've been on the front porch, and I intend to smoke a brisket for the front porch this Sunday. And I love smoking meats. Brisket in particular, pulled pork, do wings. It's time for me to do a brisket again. And Matthew Lau thinks that's a bad thing. And I want you to listen to him on stage.
So I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Through human engineering, we can get people to stop eating meat by forcing ticks on them that bite them. This is wild stuff. So someone did a deep dive into his bioethics, and let's see, Lau has proposed using pre-implantation genetic diagnosis or hormone treatments to select for or induce smaller body sizes, arguing this would reduce individual resource consumption and lower ecological footprints. In interviews and talks, he suggested enhancing human eyes for better low-light vision to decrease reliance on artificial lighting and to save energy. He has discussed boosting intelligence pharmacologically or otherwise, positing that smarter people might voluntarily choose to have fewer people indirectly driving population admissions. He has advocated drugs to heighten concern for future generations and distant populations impacted by climate change, making people more motivated to act environmentally. Framing human engineering as a safe individual level complement to geoengineering, and supporting parental use of genetic technologies for non-medical traits when safe as part of broader work on reproductive and enhancement ethics. It's always the bioethicists, is it not? They can justify anything. This guy essentially is justifying ticks to make people allergic to meat, so they stop eating meat. So the Lone Star tick, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's big in the Southeast. I actually was on the golf course about 6 months ago with my son. Now, you need to understand, my son eats 5 pieces of bacon for lunch every day. Bacon is my son's favorite food group. And we were on the golf course, and I felt something on my leg, and I looked down, and it was a Lone Star tick on my golf course in Georgia. It was crawling. I brushed it off. Did not want to get bitten by that sucker. The Lone Star tick, if it bites, and those ticks, they get on you, and they can be on you for a couple of days before they decide to bite you. And when they bite you, I know a guy who got bit by the Lone Star tick, and it put something in his bloodstream that causes a meat allergy. It's actually a cloven foot allergy. Now, what does that mean? If you eat the flesh of an animal with hooves, you are allergic to it. So you're allergic to the meat of pigs and of lamb and of cows. And also if you decide you want to eat a horse, which I don't recommend. So I guess in parts of Southeast Asia, you'd be okay if you ate dog. Squirrel, you could eat in the southern United States. You wouldn't be allergic to the squirrels or the rabbits or the fish or the chickens or the turkeys. But the good stuff, the beef, you'd be allergic to the beef if you got bit by one of these ticks and it had an effect on you. They're actually part of the scientific community is trying to work on a cure for this, or at least something that could negate the effects of it. The Lone Star tick, but it's a thing. It's called the Lone Star tick because it's kind of a brownish to black tick, and it has what looks like a white star of Texas in the center of it. Detrimental. The people who brought us brisket have a tick named after them that could prevent you from eating brisket. But it's in the Southeast and the Northeast, and it's a bad. So, in fact, my son didn't want to go play golf for a while until I told him, if you put off on, the ticks will leave you alone. So every time we go play golf now, he covers his legs in off so the Lone Star tick won't get on him and end his ability to eat bacon. He'd just be a chicken strip guy after that. But this scientist doesn't see any problem on stage in the company of friends suggesting we could bioengineer people to not eat meat by letting the Lone Star tick bite them. It should be a war crime, isn't it? A war crime? Should be. The environmentalists are the bad guys. And I worry because the environmentalists are being further and further set back. And in being set back further and further, because, the Trump administration is walking away from the Paris Climate Accords. You've got Brazil now has found a massive oil and natural gas deposit and has suddenly decided to walk away from its prior support for banning oil and natural gas. Now that Brazil has found it, they want a part of the money. It's become a real thing, and the environmentalists see it happening. You had the New York Times, a year or so ago, ran a favorable review of a book by an environmental activist who suggested they blow up pipelines because, if you blow up the pipelines, it'll discourage the flow of natural gas and oil around the country. A lot of crude oil in this country goes by pipeline to the refineries along the Mississippi River and in Texas. So you blow up those pipes. Sure, you'll cause a local ecological disaster, but you'll stop the refineries, which would be worse. That's their justification. They've blown up rail lines in this country where they were hauling coal on rail cars. They've blown up the rail lines. They've sabotaged them in this country. Environmentalists have. They're fine being the villain because they justify it, much like Thanos justified it in the Marvel movies, that one day people would thank him for having saved the universe. One day they think people will thank them for saving the planet by infecting you with something so you can't eat cows, or blowing up rail lines and oil pipelines and doing real sabotage. The environmentalists are willing to be the villains because they think they'll be thanked by future generations. Rarely do you see a villain come out who's not a genocidal leftist who believes the future will thank them for being a genocidal maniac. The genocidal maniacs always think the future will thank them. Hitler, Pol Pot, Mao, your local environmentalist activist who wants to destroy the people to save the planet. And why is it, you notice, that the planet, so I've been telling y'all, I've been working through this coming Sunday is our seventh Sunday on Genesis 1, taking me 7 weeks to get through one chapter in the Bible. And I pointed out, not this past Sunday because we had our missions conference, Sunday before last, that, when God's made humanity, he says the whole project is very good. So the light and the darkness were good. The water separated were good. The plants were good. The animals were good. You make mankind and suddenly the whole thing together is very good. The planet is built for you and me. It's not just built for the animals, but the environmentalists, who are largely godless secularists who worship the planet and not God himself, they think that we're bad. Everything is good, but we're bad. No, the planet became very good once God made us, and yet they don't want to recognize it. They don't want to believe it. They don't want to go down that road, and they want to get rid of us to save the planet. They think them, because they're all into like no deodorant and windmills and solar panels, that they're good. And the plants and animals are good. It's we're the bad ones. Those of us with our SUVs, I've got a Denali. Those of us who like to smoke meats, I got a rec deck. And I got a big grill. I gave away my big green egg. I got an outdoor pizza oven now that burns wood. My son wants me to make pizzas this weekend using wood. I intend to burn wood and celebrate the environment around me as I contribute carbon emissions and make pizzas that have pepperoni on them from pigs. It's going to be delicious because I haven't been bitten by a Lone Star tick that these people think would be a good thing to stop you and me from living our life. And that's the problem with the environmentalists, is they want you and me to stop living our lives and conform to some regressive trait that would put us back thousands of years. The last time we lived on wind and solar power alone, we called it the Dark Ages, and that's what these people want. Welcome back to the phones we go. Scott, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. You were just talking about alpha galactosidase, which the short form is alpha gal.
Yes.
Apparently, back in 1996, I got bit by a Lone Star tick on my property. And periodically in the middle of the night, I would try to go into anaphylactic shock. And the emergency rooms could never figure out what was going on up until about 12 or 15 years ago when it started getting more popular. And why it was so hard to detect was because the beef had to be digested before you had a reaction. So it would be 3, 4, 5 hours later.
Wow.
And I am the biggest carnivore on the planet, and you have no idea what it's like. I'm
I don't want to
65
know what
years
it's like.
old.
Scott, I'm sorry, but I don't want to know what it's like.
Eric, I'm 65 years old. I've never had a broken bone in my body. I never get a cold. I don't do anything. But I can't count how many times in the middle of the night my wife has had to take me to the emergency room. And when I tell the ER doctors what I got, they treat me like a rock star. They read about it, but they've never had a patient. And I have to tell them how to treat it.
Good grief.
With epinephrine. And they pump all kind of stuff in me with IVs and everything else. No, it's absolutely horrible. Having to go to the grocery store and look at packages of things and go to restaurants and tell them you can't have any kind of cross-contamination. Luckily for me, it's not all hoofed animals. It's only cow. I can eat pork.
Oh, good for you.
There's different variations.
Good gracious. That I didn't know. I didn't realize there's variations. Well, look, I got to leave it there.
And of course, there's no cure.
Well, so I read an interesting article, Scott, in the Wall Street Journal about 6 months ago that scientists are starting to try to find a way around it, that they may not be able to cure it, but they may be able to invent a pill that you can take to neutralize the effects of algal. They're in preliminary stages. Hopefully they find something for you so you can have steak again. Gosh, that's awful. Ugh. Y'all, Swiss America has been churning out some really great content on YouTube. Swiss America Trading is their site about the BRIC nations and why the surge in gold, why the decline in silver lately, how it's affected by monetary policy, how monetary policy affects precious metals. They've also been warning people about the secret war on cash, and they talk about that on their Swiss America Trading channel on YouTube as well. You can also get their report for free. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. You go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K, or you call them 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646. Just mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text them. In fact, just text E-R-I-C-K to 800-289-2646. Tell them I sent you, and they'll get you that report completely free. It'll help in your retirement and finances. It'll show you how the government's trying to curb your spending away from cash and even crypto and precious metals, because they want to monitor what you're doing, and also why world governments are trying to get out of the American reserve currency and the effects on that. 800-289-2646. Just mention Eric. Message and data rates may apply. I got to tell you guys, I'm having, what do you call it, an optical migraine? Like, I got, like, all I can see are stars in front of me. I'm having to look at, like, my computer screen out of the corner of my eye to be able to this is uncomfortable. But I shall endeavor, because I got to do this to read some data for you. I have been talking for some time now, probably 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months, about what's happening in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and Tennessee when it comes to reading and now mathematics as well, and how they have upended taking a data-based approach on education that blue states are not doing. I don't want to play for you the video again of the teacher who was pulled over by the Hispanic police officer, and she kept calling him a murderer, and ended with, you'll never be white, you're just a Mexican. But that is a woman steeped in critical theory who is a Los Angeles public school teacher who behave like that. And increasingly in blue states around the country, progressives are using the public school system to indoctrinate kids into progressive values, and they've abandoned educating them. And that's not true in the South. And the South, to this day, by a lot of Democrats, a lot of progressives, a lot of people not in the South, it gets maligned as being backward and racist. Nick Kristof is the writer at the New York Times. He had an unsuccessful run for governor in Oregon, kind of embarrassingly so. He went back and he's done this piece. I want to read you part of this. He writes, "A ray of hope is emerging in American education, not among Democrats or Republicans, easily diverted by culture wars, not in the education reform movement, largely abandoned by the philanthropists who once propelled it, not in most schools across the country still struggling with chronic absenteeism and a decade of faltering test scores. Rather, hope emerges in the most unlikely of places, 3 states deep in the South that long represented America's educational basement. These states, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, I would add Tennessee as well, have histories of child poverty, racism, dismal educational outcomes, and they continue to spend less than most other states on public schools. Yet consider, Louisiana ranks number 1 in the country in recovery from pandemic losses in reading. Alabama ranks number 1 in math recovery. The states with the lowest chronic absenteeism in schools is Alabama, according to a tracker with data from 40 states. Once an educational laughingstock, Mississippi now ranks 9th in the country in 4th grade reading levels. When you adjust for demographics such as poverty and race, Mississippi ranks number 1. While Louisiana ranks number 2, according to calculations by the Urban Institute. Using the same demographic adjustments, Mississippi also ranks number 1 in America in both 4th grade and 8th grade math. Black 4th graders in Mississippi are on average better readers than those in Massachusetts, which is often thought to have the best public school systems in the country and one that spends twice as much per pupil than Mississippi. Kristof says he wrote about Mississippi's educational successes in 2023, but many liberals scoffed at the notion that learning from a state so tainted is possible. Skeptics, mostly on the left, have made many critiques of Mississippi's gains, including that they fade in upper grades, that these states are cheating, that this is all a temporary blip, and that any progress is simply a result of holding back weak readers. The critiques have been effectively rebutted. For starters, they can't explain the continued gains in Mississippi or the magnitude of the gains. Just as striking, the Mississippi gains increasingly are being replicated in Alabama and Louisiana as they follow similar approaches. That's enormously encouraging, for it suggests that other states can also lift student trajectories if they're willing to learn from southern red states they may be more accustomed to looking down on. That's Nick Kristof in the New York Times. A buddy of mine teaches down in Jacksonville, Florida. He was actually, his family had a company down in Jacksonville, and he decided that he wanted to be a school teacher. And he has started teaching schools. And he was texting me the other day, and he said, one of the things that is a new normal in public schools is lack of caring about attendance. In fact, a lot of states have imposed stringent attendance requirements post-COVID coming back into the classroom, and then they don't enforce them. My kid's school actually has stringent requirements, and they enforce them. And I get kind of aggravated with it because you don't want to send your kid to school with COVID or the flu, and yet you still got to keep up with the attendance and stuff like that. And in Georgia, they've gotten back to enforcing it more, and even the private schools have to adhere to it. And in a lot of blue states, they don't enforce it. Consider Minnesota right now. In Minnesota, they've used the presence of ICE to shut down the schools again so that teachers can go protest. It wasn't the winter weather; it was the ICE protest, and they needed to shut down the schools so the teachers and hopefully the kids could be in the streets. They don't value educating the kids so much as indoctrinating the kids. Schools in Alabama respond firmly when a pupil doesn't show up. After 3 unexcused absences, the school has a meeting with the parents. After 5 unexcused absences, school district officials summon parents and warn them they face legal risks. At 7 unexcused absences, the school refers parents to juvenile court. This can lead to a court appearance before a judge, and they can actually put a parent in jail if the kid keeps missing school. The Marion County District is a mining and manufacturing area that lost many jobs and wrestles with poverty and addiction, but the district slashed chronic absenteeism to 11% last year. Kids are in school. In classrooms and offices, teachers and administrators frequently mention the motivating power of report cards. But then what do they actually do? It's not just the attendance. You know, one of the things they did? They went back to phonics. A lot of the educational establishment hated phonics. In the 1970s, they changed to the whole word method and the sight word method, where you put a sentence together and you can get the context so you can understand the word. Billy puts on his SHOE. Billy puts on his SHOE. He must wear his SHOES to go outside so his feet don't get wet. That word SHOE must be shoe, and SHOES must be shoes. Well, what if you can't understand the other words in the sentence? If you learn phonics, you can learn how to pronounce each word. You don't have to memorize the words. And Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, they have begun reimposing phonics, and not just phonics, but teaching the teachers how to teach phonics effectively. Children are tested weekly. Schools are posted in green, yellow, and red zones. The charts are identifying pupils by numbers, not by names, so there's no shaming in the classroom. Mississippi adopted a third grade gate. All third graders have to pass a reading test to go to fourth grade. If you don't pass the test, you don't go to fourth grade. And you keep repeating third grade until you can read at the third grade level. And you're tested to make sure. The other states embrace that. Mississippi children who lag or miss school days in some cases are pushed to attend after-school sessions on Saturday. Low-income children are more likely to be test proficient in reading in Mississippi or Louisiana than in California, Massachusetts, or New York. Think about that. For all the arrogance of these states like California, Massachusetts, and New York that spend double to triple what Mississippi and Louisiana spend, the Mississippi and Louisiana students are outperforming the schools in those blue states that spend twice or three times as much money. But it's not just the phonics. I've been waiting for this. You know what else they've done? They've gone back to old school math. When I was in third grade, I've told you the story before. I had a third grade teacher. She was a fiery Greek lady, and I loved her. Her name was Helen Bruskus. We were all scared of her, and she's still to this day one of my favorite teachers. She taught me the love of writing. And we had to write. Every day in Helen Bruskus's class, we had to write. And we also had to learn the multiplication tables in third grade. You know how we learned them? It was so old school. We had a record player. And the record player played a song. And the song was very simple. I can sing the song for you. Forgive me. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 10 is 20. That was the song. We had to memorize it. And until we could sing it for Mrs. Bruskus and get it right, and then she would quiz us out of order. What's 2 times 6? 12. What's 2 times 4? 8. What's 2 times 10? 20. Once we were proficient, it's time to move on to the next record. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. And on it went. And we had to do this all the way up through 9. Once you got to 10, it's easy. 10 times 2 is 20. 10 times 3 is 30. 10 times 4. And when you get to 11, she would teach us if you added the first and the last number together, you would get what it was. So 11 times 1 was 11. And 11 times 2 is 22, and 11 times 3 is 33, and it goes up from there. And there was a math method to figure it out. But you had to memorize it. And then along comes Common Core. They now call it Singapore math. See, a lot of schools' parents caught on that Common Core was garbage. And a lot of teachers, just like they ditched phonics, they embraced Common Core, and it made the teachers more powerful than the parents because the parents could no longer help the kids with homework, and it was completely different. They would call it new math versus grandma math, and then they called it Common Core, and then they called it Singapore math. Some parents liked it, a lot of teachers liked it, but the kids aren't getting the math results with Common Core or Singapore math that they got with the old school math, where you had to memorize your times tables and then apply it to division and move from there. And guess what these states are doing? They're going back to the old school math, the grandma math that Common Core taught teachers to call pejorative and hateful. They're going back to the old math. And in the old math, guess what's happening? They're doing the same thing with the math grades that they're doing with the reading grades. You can't get out of third grade in Mississippi if you don't remember your math times tables. If you can't say what 9 times 9 is, when by the time you're out of third grade in Mississippi, you're not headed into fourth grade. You got to be able to read and you got to be able to cite your times tables before you get into fourth grade where you start division. They're doing the old school math, the math that people in the early 1900s would recognize, the people in the 1800s would recognize, and they're getting better results now than the Common Core math that California uses or that elite private schools in the South use. The public school kids in the South that have gone back to traditional mathematics are actually outperforming the kids in the elite private schools that are doing Common Core, or call it Singapore math or whatever you want to call it. It's still Common Core. You just change the name and it's still garbage. And the kids doing the traditional mathematics are starting to outperform the kids in the private schools, even in the South, on budgets that are absurd. Let me give you the data. In Alabama, do you know what the spending is per pupil in Alabama and Mississippi? $12,000 a student. Do you know what it is in New York? $30,000. And kids in Alabama and Mississippi are now outperforming kids in New York on math and reading tests. Yes, New York, this is for you. The states of Alabama and Mississippi that spend less than half you do per pupil in a classroom, those students are now better than New York students in reading and mathematics on the standardized tests you all take. Why? Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, they have something in common. They don't have strong teachers' unions. In those states, they could ditch the things the teachers' unions wanted. They don't spend as much money in the classroom as the teachers' union states. So they spend less per capita on students, and they get better results. The theory has always been from the blue states with the teachers' unions, you need to just throw money at the schools. They throw more and more money at the schools, and they get worse and worse results. The fact of the matter is the Southern surge is working in schools, and that surge is just reverting to the way we taught kids at the turn of the 20th century. Phonics and real math. In all of those states, enforcing attendance standards and literacy standards to move from third grade into fourth grade are outperforming California, New York, and Massachusetts now. And that should tell those states something. And instead, you know what those states are doing? They're trying to spend money debunking the Southern surge. They're trying to spend money to prove it's not real. And yet they haven't been able to debunk it because in the standardized tests, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee are outperforming them. And by the way, Florida, your reading test scores have dropped compared to those states. Might want to pay attention to Mississippi. Cuba is telling international airlines that it will run out of aviation fuel tonight, and they should plan accordingly. Additionally, Mexico has announced it will stop shipping oil to Cuba. Mexico is one of the last countries in the Western Hemisphere sending oil to Cuba The United States is shutting down Cuba and Cuban society as a way to build pressure on the Cuban regime. This is a very good policy by the Trump administration. It is a very good model of leadership by the president and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, to finally put an end to the Cuban regime by taking out Venezuela's capacity, which was the number one exporter to Cuba, and now getting the Mexicans to agree to curtail it as well. This is a great, great, great day in the Western Hemisphere for free people to see the Cuban regime beginning rapidly to crumble. And it is all thanks to Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not want to outlast or be outlasted by the Cuban communists. And he has set his mind to it under the influence and suggestions of Marco Rubio. And the president of the United States deserves a lot of credit for doing what no other American president has been able to do. You stop oil flowing into Cuba, and that regime begins to collapse rapidly. And Cuba is advising airlines globally that if they come into Cuba, their planes may not be able to get out because they will be out of aviation fuel thanks to the pressure of the United States government. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you. I need to tell you, thanks to Renai as well, because I never run out of hot water in my house, thanks to Renai, their tankless water heater. If you go to talkingtankless.com, you can get information on how to upgrade your house. Get rid of your tank of a water heater. We had tanks in our house. We didn't build a new house. We just got rid of the tanks and put in the tankless water heater. It's the size of a carry-on suitcase, and it keeps us never out of hot water. As long as you have natural gas or propane, this sucker works, and it doesn't stop when the power goes out. We have a UPS little backup that I plug it into, and it just fires up and is very efficient if the power goes out, which is rare in our neighborhood, but it happens, and we don't run out of hot water. You won't either. We had electric water heaters. Our electric bill has gone down dramatically, getting rid of those and switching to the tankless water heater from Renai. They're fantastic. You never run out of hot water. Your kids stop fighting over hot water. Go to talkingtankless.com. talkingtankless.com. That's the website Renai set up for you guys to start talking about getting a tankless water heater. Ditch your tank and go tankless with Renai. talkingtankless.com.